Beneath the surface of arrogance and manipulation sits a deep emptiness, a hollow space they are constantly trying to fill. What they want more than anything is control, not just over situations, but over people, especially those who care about them. And why is that? Because a narcissist's sense of self is not built on anything stable. It comes from the outside. They need nonstop validation, admiration, or even conflict to keep the fragile image of their superiority alive. Without that, the mask begins to break apart. This is exactly why emotional detachment, your refusal to play along, feels so painful to them. When you detach from a narcissist, you do something they cannot understand or handle. You take your power back. This does not mean shouting, fighting, or dramatic reactions. That still gives them energy, and they grow stronger from any attention, whether positive or negative. What unsettles a narcissist the most is your indifference. When you stop reacting, when their words or actions no longer move you, it hits directly at the center of their biggest fear, the fear that they do not matter. Think about how a narcissist's world operates. Every interaction is transactional. You are not viewed as a separate person with value or emotions. You are seen as an object, something to use. If you praise them, they feel validated. If you argue, they feel powerful. Even if you hate them, at least you are still emotionally tied to them. But indifference is something different. It means they have no power over you anymore. And for a narcissist who survives by controlling the feelings of those around them, that loss is devastating. Detachment is powerful because it reveals a truth the narcissist cannot accept, that you are independent. You exist outside of their influence. When you pull away, you force them to face the fact that their tactics no longer shape your emotions. This threatens them because it breaks the story they tell themselves that they are more important than anyone else. If you can leave without being emotionally destroyed, it shows they were never as powerful as they believed. There is also a deeper idea at work here. To detach emotionally is to reclaim your dignity. When you stay tangled with a narcissist, when you keep reacting, you give them permission to shape your inner world. But by choosing not to engage, you are stating a simple truth. Your worth is not based on their approval or disapproval. You are not a character in their mental play. You are a whole person who can choose your own emotional state. Detachment is not passive, it is an act of strength. It requires you to face your own desire for clarity or validation. Because here is the truth. When you detach from a narcissist, you will never receive closure from them. They will not admit wrongdoing. They will never give you the sincere apology you deserve. And this is part of the challenge, understanding that your healing cannot depend on their acknowledgement. You must take your healing into your own hands. There is a strange paradox in all this. The more you try to make a narcissist understand the hurt they cause, the more control you give them. But when you stop trying, when you detach and move forward, their influence disappears completely. This is why walking away is the ultimate shift in power. You no longer search for their approval. And because of that, they have nothing left to feed on. A narcissist's biggest fear is not hatred, it is being irrelevant. Hatred still means you feel something, indifference means you do not. And when you reach that emotional distance, when their behavior no longer pulls a reaction out of you, you give them nothing. That emptiness is painful for a narcissist because it forces them to face the one thing they have avoided their entire life, themselves. This is why detachment is such a powerful form of freedom. It is not only about escaping their manipulation, it is about taking back your inner world. You are no longer tied up in their emotional game. You can define yourself again. And this kind of freedom, this emotional independence, is something a narcissist will never truly understand or have. And here is the final truth, perhaps the most satisfying one. When you detach, you force the narcissist to face their own emptiness. Without your emotions to depend on, they are left with the hollow space they have tried so hard to avoid. They may never admit it. They may continue pretending for others, but deep down, they know they lost the moment you stopped caring. In the end, the most powerful thing you can do is not to fight, not to explain, not to seek their understanding, but to walk away with your self-respect intact. Let them sit in the silence you leave behind, because that silence speaks louder than any words. Understanding the narcissist's dependence on outside validation reveals something important. Without your emotional involvement, their carefully built illusion begins to fall apart. The narcissist is not self-sustaining. Their identity is not grounded in anything real or steady. Instead, it is held up by the reactions they take from others. This is why your withdrawal, your choice to walk away, feels like a threat to their entire sense of self. It is not simply that you are leaving, it is that your absence takes away the emotional supply they rely on to keep their superiority intact. At the heart of this dynamic is the idea of narcissistic supply. This is the attention, admiration, or emotional reaction a narcissist needs to maintain their inflated self-image. It is not optional for them. It is their fuel. Without it, their sense of importance starts to crumble, exposing the painful feelings they work so hard to bury: shame, emptiness, and inadequacy. When you engage with them, whether through affection, arguments, or even anger, you are feeding that need. But when you leave, you cut off their supply, and that lack shakes them in a way nothing else can. What makes this so painful for the narcissist is the kind of loss they experience. You are not just ending a relationship. You are taking away their ability to define themselves through you. For a narcissist, relationships are not about connection or genuine care. They are about control. When you were close to them, they had the ability to influence how you saw yourself and the world. When you walk away, you take that power back, and you also remove the belief that they can control people forever. And here is the truth they will never admit. The narcissist needs you more than you ever needed them. They cannot say this out loud because it would destroy the image they try to maintain. But it is real. While you may feel pain after leaving, you still remain whole. You have an inner world, a sense of identity that does not depend on someone else's approval. The narcissist does not. They cannot hold themselves up without someone else reflecting their importance back to them. When you walk away, you force them to face that inner emptiness on their own. Think about what this means for them emotionally. For a narcissist, being ignored feels like disappearing. It is not just a hurt ego, it is a crisis of existence. Their sense of self depends entirely on others paying attention. Without it, they must face the frightening truth that behind their image, there is very little there. This is why your silence hurts them more than any argument ever could. It forces them to confront the emptiness they have avoided for years. This is also why they may become desperate when they sense you pulling away. They might use manipulation, guilt, or charm to pull you back in. This has nothing to do with genuine care. It is survival. They are not grieving the loss of you as a person. They are grieving the loss of what they could get from you. And the more firmly you refuse to return, the more frantic they become. This is the moment when your true power becomes clear. By not going back, you deny them the one thing they cannot live without: control over your emotions. But the most important part of walking away is not what it does to them, but what it does for you. It marks a return to your autonomy. While you were tied to them, your emotional life was shaped by their moods and reactions. You doubted yourself. You questioned your worth. You may have even believed you needed them to be complete, but when you walk away, you break that illusion. You prove to yourself that your value is not tied to their opinion. There is incredible freedom in realizing that you no longer owe your energy to someone who only wanted to drain it. And this freedom is something a narcissist will never know. They remain stuck in a cycle of needing others to feel important, while you begin learning what it means to be whole on your own. By leaving, you do not just take your life back. You claim your dignity, your worth, and your right to exist without manipulation. And here is the final paradox. After all their efforts to control you, the narcissist ends up losing you completely, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally. When you walk away with your self-respect intact, you deny them the victory they always believed they could claim. The truth is, once you heal and grow beyond what a narcissist expected, you show them something they never wanted to face. You become proof that the damage they tried to leave behind did not last. You show them that their control was never real. And nothing hurts a narcissist more deeply than seeing that you have moved forward and built a life where their presence no longer matters at all. In the end, the strongest form of resistance is not revenge and not arguing. It is the calm and steady choice to walk away and not look back again. Because the moment you do that, the narcissist loses the only thing they ever truly held over you: the ability to shape how you see yourself. And when that influence disappears, they are left standing with nothing except their own emptiness. And maybe that is the most fitting outcome they will ever face. One of the most powerful ways to make a narcissist feel the pain they caused is by taking back your identity fully and without shame. This is not something shallow. It has nothing to do with surface level changes or empty gestures. It is a deep inner process of restoring the parts of you that became dim under their control. Because here is the real truth. A narcissist's power survives only as long as you doubt yourself. Their control is tied directly to how unsure you are of your value, your thoughts, and your right to stand on your own. When you begin to claim these things again, you disturb the very core of their influence. Think for a moment about what a narcissist actually does when they are involved in your life. They weaken your confidence through subtle and sometimes very clear forms of emotional manipulation. They challenge your reality, dismiss your successes, and steadily chip away at your sense of self-worth. This is not accidental. It is calculated, because the more uncertain you become, the easier it is for them to twist your emotions or decisions. When you lose trust in your own instincts and your internal guidance, you begin leaning on their version of what is true. And nothing makes a narcissist happier than someone who depends on them for approval. This is why reclaiming your sense of self is such a powerful act of psychological freedom. It is your way of declaring, I decide who I am, not you. And that is something a narcissist cannot stand. They need you to stay unsure because your insecurity gives them control. Without your doubt, they lose the ability to shape your emotional world. But here is the interesting part. When you start rebuilding, the narcissist feels it. Even if they are no longer physically in your life, they sense when their influence begins to slip away. And that scares them because, in many ways, their entire identity depends on keeping some level of control over others. When you take back your identity, you are not only freeing yourself, you also reveal the weakness behind their mask of confidence. And what does this rebuilding look like? It begins with choosing to trust yourself again. It means understanding that the voice of self-doubt never truly belonged to you. It was placed there by someone who needed you to feel small in order to feel big. And as you begin to push that voice away, something remarkable happens. Your clarity comes back. You begin to see through all the lies you were told, not only about them, but about who you are. You realize you were never weak. You were never broken. You were simply trained to believe those things because your strength threatened someone who could not face their own flaws. Taking back your identity also means being honest about the ways you abandoned yourself just to avoid problems, because that is often the cost of staying connected to a narcissist. You quiet your needs to prevent conflict. You shrink your presence, hoping that if you become small enough, silent enough, patient enough, you will finally receive the love you deserved. But that love never comes, because for them, it was never about love. It was always about control. Once you understand this clearly, you begin to see that your path forward is not to try winning their approval, but to give yourself the approval you were denied. The beautiful part is that the more you reclaim your identity, the less space the narcissist takes in your mind. They fade into the background. Their opinions, their judgments, their attempts to manipulate, none of it carries weight anymore. And for a narcissist, nothing hurts more than realizing they no longer sit at the center of your world. That is their deepest fear, to be forgotten, to be unimportant. And by reclaiming yourself, you turn that fear into reality. What makes all of this so painful for them is that once you see the truth, you can never go back. Once you feel the freedom of trusting yourself again, you will never hand over your power the way you once did. The narcissist understands this. They know that once you reclaim your identity, you become completely resistant to the tricks they used before, and losing that power over you injures them more deeply than anything else. But there is another layer to this. When you take back your life, you don't only heal, you become a reminder of their failure. You show simply by existing that their control was never as strong as they believed. No matter how hard they tried to damage your spirit, they did not succeed. And that truth follows them, quietly but constantly. Because if they cannot control you anymore, it means their entire story about themselves falls apart. Make no mistake, rebuilding yourself is not simple. It takes courage to face the ways you were diminished. It takes strength to rebuild yourself piece by piece. But the reward is real freedom, deep and lasting freedom. And that is something the narcissist will never experience. They stay stuck in a prison of their own making, while you walk forward with your dignity still whole. So if you want to make a narcissist feel the weight of what they put you through, reclaim who you are. Refuse to let their false stories shape you. Trust your instincts again. Speak your truth with confidence. And most importantly, live a life that reflects the full and complete person you truly are. Because nothing causes a narcissist more pain than knowing you broke free from their grasp, and that without you, they are left facing the emptiness inside themselves. Another powerful way to make a narcissist feel the pain they caused is by reaching true emotional detachment. This means getting to a place where they no longer touch your inner world at all. It sounds simple, But anyone who has been caught in a narcissist's web knows how deeply they can plant themselves in your mind. Their manipulation goes far deeper than the surface. It reaches into your emotions, your thoughts, and even your sense of what is real. They invest a lot of effort into tying your emotions to their approval or disappointment. But when you detach, when you cut that emotional cord, they lose the strongest tool they ever had. To understand why detachment is so effective, you first need to understand what a narcissist craves. It is not real love. It is not genuine respect. What they truly need, what they cannot function without, is attention. Good attention or bad, it does not matter. Psychologists call this narcissistic supply. It is the emotional fuel they use to keep their fragile sense of self standing. Without it, they feel hollow and unstable. This is why they press your emotional buttons so precisely. They provoke reactions on purpose: anger, guilt, sadness, confusion, because your response proves that they still matter. Your emotions remind them that they still have influence. When you detach emotionally, you break this connection completely. Detachment is not pretending you don't care. Many people misunderstand that. Fake indifference still connects you to the narcissist because you are acting based on them. True detachment means they no longer have the ability to disturb your emotional balance. Their words stop triggering the feelings they once did. Their actions no longer pull out guilt, fear, or regret. And that is what destroys the grip they had over you. Here is the strange twist. The more desperately a narcissist tries to control you, the more dependent they become on your emotional reactions. When you detach, it creates a silence inside them that they cannot handle. Suddenly, the person they counted on to fuel their ego is no longer responding, and that emptiness is unbearable for them. Narcissists cannot handle any form of rejection, but emotional detachment hurts them in a special way because it shows that their manipulation has failed. And to a narcissist, failure is not just disappointing, it threatens their entire identity. But emotional detachment is not just about hurting them, it is also about freeing yourself. Because as long as you remain tied to the narcissist emotionally, whether through anger, longing, or even the desire to get even, you remain stuck in their shadow. Your mind stays focused on their behavior. Your heart stays heavy from old wounds. Detachment opens the door to your own peace again. It allows you to take back your mental and emotional space they once occupied without deserving it. And it is important to say that reaching this level of detachment is not simple. It takes steady effort and honesty. You have to face how much they affected your life. You have to admit how much of yourself was lost. And most importantly, you have to let go, not just of the narcissist, but of the dream that one day they will see you, appreciate you, or love you in the way you hoped for. That dream is what keeps so many people stuck. They believe that if they try a bit harder, say the right thing, or give more effort, they will finally be valued. But with a narcissist, that moment never arrives. Letting go of that fantasy is the first step toward real detachment. And here is the interesting part. As soon as you reach real detachment, the narcissist senses it instantly. They may not say it, but they feel the shift. They feel the loss of power, they feel your distance, and it shakes them more than anything else. The guilt trips, the silent treatment, the love bombing, all the manipulations that once pulled you back into their world begin to lose their power. And that realization is crushing for them because it exposes a truth they cannot handle, that they are not as powerful or as necessary as they want to believe. Emotional detachment shifts the balance of control in a way that cannot be reversed. When you are no longer emotionally involved, you become unpredictable. The narcissist cannot guess your reactions anymore because you are not reacting based on their behavior. And for someone who lives off control, this unpredictability becomes unbearable. It forces them to face a reality they have tried to avoid their entire lives, that they are not the center of your world anymore. The most important effect of emotional detachment is that it breaks the cycle completely. Narcissistic abuse always follows a pattern: idealization, devaluation, discard, and then the cycle begins again. As long as you stay emotionally tied to them, you remain open to being dragged back into that loop. Detachment ends that loop for good. It shows that you are no longer participating in their emotional drama. And without someone watching, the narcissist's performance loses all purpose. The deepest pain you can cause a narcissist is to become irrelevant to them. And emotional detachment is the quickest path to that result. This is not about punishing them, it is about taking back your own life. It is about seeing clearly that their behavior says nothing about your worth and everything about their inner emptiness. When you reach that level of clarity, when their words and actions no longer weigh on your heart, you become truly free. And in that freedom lies the final blow for them, because nothing hurts a narcissist more than knowing they no longer have any influence over you, that the person they tried so hard to break is now far beyond their reach. Once you arrive at that point, there is no going back. They lose and you win, not through revenge, but through your healing. A crucial truth to understand when dealing with a narcissist is that their sense of superiority is an illusion, a mask built to hide deep insecurity. When you leave and refuse to play along, that mask begins to fall apart. The control they had over you came from twisting your thoughts, making you question yourself, and reshaping your reality. By stepping away, you force them to face the truth they have avoided for years, that they are not untouchable, and their carefully crafted image is only an empty shell. At the core of narcissism lies a painful sense of inadequacy, a void they cannot fill. Even with all the arrogance they show, they are constantly battling self-doubt and a fear of being exposed as weak or not good enough. This fear is so overwhelming that they create a false version of themselves, a persona designed to look strong and superior. Every action they take is meant to protect that image. But this image is fragile. It depends on constant praise and attention to stay in place. When you walk away, you strike directly at that fragile structure. Without someone feeding their ego, they are forced to face the one thing they cannot stand: their true self. Being alone with who they really are feels like torture to them. They depend on others to confirm that they are special and superior. Without that confirmation, their illusion starts to fall apart. This is why they fight so desperately to maintain control. They know, even if they do not fully realize it, that their identity is unstable. Your presence, your reactions, your attention serve as proof that their mask works. When you walk away, you take that proof away from them, and without it, they are left struggling, exposed to the insecurity they have tried so hard to hide. What is both sad and revealing is how fragile their entire illusion really is. A person who is truly confident does not need to manipulate others to feel whole. They can accept rejection or criticism. But for a narcissist, any form of rejection, including your decision to leave, feels like a threat to their existence. It is not only that they lose control over you, They lose control over the story they tell themselves about who they are. And when that story falls apart, they are left with the plain truth they cannot face, that beneath their show of confidence is deep insecurity. Even then, they cannot admit that their suffering is caused by their own actions. Instead, they blame others. They blame you. They convince themselves that you are the problem, that your decision to stop feeding their ego is a betrayal instead of a healthy act of self-protection. This is why walking away cuts them so deeply. It takes away the illusion they depend on and does not give them someone they can fully control or blame. They are left with the truth they fear most, that they are not as powerful or superior as they need to believe. This unraveling does not happen instantly. It is slow. At first, they may react with anger, trying to punish you for disrupting their narrative. If that does not work, they may try to pull you back, not out of love, but because they need you to repair their damaged self-image. But if you stay firm, the mask continues to fall. Day by day, their insecurity grows heavier. The cracks in their facade widen, and the illusion they work so hard to build becomes harder to maintain. What makes this consequence so powerful is that they cannot fix it by themselves. They cannot rebuild the illusion alone. They need someone else to play along. When you refuse to play that role, you leave them unable to sustain the identity they cling to. But here is the important part. You do not walk away to hurt them, you walk away to save yourself. The pain they feel afterward is not something you created. It is the natural outcome of their own behavior. By choosing not to support their illusion, you free yourself from the emotional prison they created around you. And in doing so, you reveal a truth they never wanted to face, that their power only existed because you allowed it. Without your participation, their control was never real. When you step away from a narcissist and begin rebuilding your life, something powerful happens. You reclaim the one thing they tried so hard to take, your identity. A narcissist's control depends on shaping how you see yourself. They slowly weaken your confidence, twist your thinking, and force their version of reality onto you. Over time, you may even doubt your own worth and judgment. But when you leave and begin rediscovering who you are without their influence, their grip fades until it disappears completely. This rebuilding of identity is not just an act of resistance, it is an act of deep self-respect. And that is why it hurts the narcissist so much. Their way of living depends on shaping the identities of those around them. In their mind, other people are not seen as independent individuals. They are seen as mirrors or tools. When you walk away and define yourself on your own terms, you break their illusion completely. You stop being an object for them and become a full person again, someone independent and self-directed. And this is the greatest loss for them, because for all their loud confidence, they have no real sense of self underneath.